Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app. On Apple, recommend Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And on Android, we recommend Spotify. Also, check out the Five Reasons YouTube channel for content across the South Florida sports spectrum. Also, subscribe to Off the Floor. If you've been on Off the Floor, we've been tipping you off the things all along during free agency period. Prior to that, with the draft, you got to be here. We take everything decent from Twitter. We put it over here. We separate it into different spots. Yes, we moderate it, but we let you talk. And we have the stage shows. And actually, as we speak, they're gearing up for one over there. So if you were subscribed to Off the Floor, you would know about it. Check it out. Link right here in the description. Bypass the Apple upcharge. Pay $2.99 a month. You can cancel at any time. Also, check out Prize Picks. We got our baseball guys going there. For those of you who are baseball fans, Jim Rodriguez, Austin Dobbins, they've been hitting regularly. Eric Wiedeke. Check it out. It's prizepicks.com. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E. You can also play WNBA. And, of course, once the seasons start again, NFL, NBA, and NHL. Check it out. It's prizepicks.com. Use the code F-I-V-E. And now, today's episode.
Mercy, luxurious, Heat Nation, yeah, Mercy and Lago, down to Biscayne, yeah, five on the floor, ride for my dogs, where here's the thing, you can check the score, hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs, down to Biscayne. Kept the floor playing, got it all band. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, it's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the Five Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to Five on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. The Miami Heat have made another trade, this time more significant than the other. We got Alex Toledo. You can follow him at Tropical Blanket. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick at Five Reasons Sports. Thank me for going on vacation because this is when this stuff always happens. The Miami Heat have acquired Norm Powell. We'll get into the details of the trade, what this means. We'll do deeper dives on this over the next couple of days. We are going to have coverage out at Summer League. Norm Powell is a player that they've been interested in for a long time. We've talked about him for a while. I actually kind of threw his name out there on playback yesterday. If you were following the game with us, I asked fans, would you be interested in Norm Powell if he didn't have to give up too much? Going to be 32 years old this season, was nearly an all-star this past year. Some thought he should have been, actually. Was a key force in the Clippers kind of getting past the Paul George era, along with obviously Kawhi Leonard and James Harden. But Powell is in the last year of his contract, and so he had scoring punch to a Heat team that at the moment desperately needs it without making a long-term commitment to him, which is one of the things we're going to talk about because there are other tentacles to this as we go forward. Going out, not a lot. Kyle Anderson, who was acquired in the trade at the deadline, is part of the deal for Jimmy Butler, a player who at first they weren't going to keep, but they were open to keeping. Of course, Masai Ujiri had another deal in the works. He was running the Toronto Raptors at the time, and when he went out and got Brandon Ingram, he couldn't make the trade anymore for Kyle Anderson. The Heat were aware of that at the time, no hard feelings. But Kyle stayed with the Heat. Eric Spoelstra used him a little bit, smart player, slow-mo, all the rest of that. Not a part of the long-term plan. He had another year on his contract beyond this one, potentially, and so you clear that money out. And also Kevin Love, who I do want to say a couple things about before we go forward, because he tweeted that he didn't think he'd become a math problem towards the end of his career. Kevin did a lot of really good things in the Heat organization over the past couple of seasons, which I think we should commemorate at some point. But let's be honest, he wasn't going to play a lot this year. He didn't play a lot last year. He was dealing with a lot of things in his family and personal stuff, but he wasn't a part of the long-term plan other than as a mentor and maybe somebody who might come back to the organization at some point. I know he loved living in Miami, but he's traded to Utah and likely won't stay there. We'll see where he continues his career. Alex, your first thought, your instant thought when you saw this trade, and I'll just give you mine was that's all? Like that's all they gave up? Like that was the first thing I thought. Is that what you thought?
Absolutely. First of all, it was like I was stunned, right? Because obviously, like what everybody had been talking about was Wiggins, and of course, like there was a lot of smoke about the LA teams being interested in Wiggins, right? And that's kind of what had been on my mind going into, like, you know, the fact that they were in California for the summer league, and usually like executives are there, scouts are there, you know, guys talk, and it felt like, you know, a natural place for momentum to happen within, I mean, like a Wiggins trade, right? So obviously this completely blew me away. Like the other day when Leif had heard that and threw it on off the floor, our Discord server, about the Clippers being a team for Wiggins, I was looking through packages for him where it's, you know, Bogdanovich and Derrick Jones Jr. and a pick coming back, because I was like, okay, they probably want to keep Powell. They're probably trying to add Wiggins to, you know, their 4 best players. So yeah, I absolutely was not expecting Powell to be moved. Now, of course, I'm not 100% tuned into, you know, Clippers media and what they're talking about. I'm sure they had an idea that maybe Powell could be moved because of the expiring contract, and more so because of the extension he would have been eligible for, which I believe our guy Brian Fonseca said it was I want to say 128 million. I have to go double check that over 4 years, but he was going to be eligible for an extension, and you know, they essentially made a decision to not commit, to move on from him ahead of time, get a guy in Collins who, you know, is signed on for next season. And yeah, like I just did not see this coming. You know, I was very surprised that the Heat were able to get a guy of his caliber, even though he isn't expiring, for essentially to expiring. Because I believe Kyle Anderson, there's some stuff with his second season. But either way,
that's
like,
true. I should have said that.
A guy, either way though, like a guy who was in the back end of the rotation, and another guy who just was completely out of it. He didn't even send a second round pick. You know, like that's absolutely incredible.
The Clippers sent a second round pick, did they not?
Yeah.
Clippers sent a second round pick to Utah, so they sent that pick. So essentially, let's look at it from Danny's perspective for a second. First thing, by the way, the Heat and Danny Ainge have made a trade, even if it wasn't direct, right? So I guess that myth is gone. They were in the same trade. Danny never makes trades that are less than 2 teams. I said that on playback yesterday. This one was 3 teams.
They, like, didn't communicate? They just like communicated through the Clippers.
Different rooms. They had a mediator. It was like a divorce. I mean, basically, Danny, shut the F up and manage your own team. We're going to go deal with
Danny that we're willing to send Kyle Anderson and Kevin Love.
That's right. Well, see, I know the Heat have had good rapport with the Clippers in the past, so it doesn't surprise me that they'd make a deal with them. And like you said, we've talked about the possibility of Wiggins. Collins is someone who has wanted to get back here forever. I'm not actually in South Florida right now, but when I get there, back into South Florida forever, he went to school in Palm Beach County and has wanted to get back. And, you know, we had talked about the Heat being involved in negotiations, possibly for him, maybe sending Rozier out there and a pick. Of course, the Heat don't have a lot of picks to trade. They don't have to give up one in this deal. I'm having a hard time, because I always try to think of what Heat fans are going to complain about, and I really can't figure out what it would be. And I will say, and I put this on Discord this morning, or off the floor if you followed it, because I've been following the Bradley Beal thing, and I just got the sense that they were not all that in on Bradley Beal again, even at this price. And, you know, I was told we're working on other business. That's what came across, and this was the other business. And I just for comparison's sake, okay, Norm Powell and Bradley Beal roughly the same age, within a year of each other. Last year, just for people who aren't as familiar with Powell, because I feel like Beal has been the all-star, he's been the bigger name, obviously. But last year, in his age 31 season, he shot 48% from the floor, 42% from 3 on 7.1 attempts. The Heat shooting problem kind of halfway solved with this move. And he also shot 80% from the line. Now, he's never been a big assist guy or a big rebounder. He's a scorer. And, you know, defensively, we'll talk about that as well. And I'll do a deeper dive on that with Brady tonight. But, like, he's a professional scorer, really. That's what he is. And that's what he did last season. And he did it even while playing with Harden. I know Kawhi was out for some of that time. And he became, you know, a 1A option for the Clippers for that time. And here's another stat, just to throw this at you. For people talk about availability, because he has missed some time. Like last year, he played 60 games. He's had a couple seasons where he's played less. He's played more games than Tyler over the past 5 years. I think it's 310, 302. He's played almost 60 more games than Beal over the past 5 seasons. So actually been more available than either Tyler. I know Tyler played a lot of games this past year, or than Beal. Let's just talk briefly about, there's two things to get into here with the on-court thing. And then on the other side, you and I should just sort of, I tee up what some other episodes are going to be, because I know people want to talk about what this means for Tyler and others.
There's so much.
There's a
this is a gift to us as well, just because.
Oh my God! Thank you.
Whatever direction you wanted him to go in, it gives us so much stuff to talk about, so many angles. So thank you very much.
Well, let me ask this angle, because this will be the first question. Let's try to do these quickly, and then we'll get to break. And then on the other side, we'll touch on some of the other things we're going to get into. We've talked about going young, okay? And people are going to come at me and they're going to say, well, you said go young, and they just got a guy who's he's 31. He's going to be 32 this year. So he's not young. 32. He's not, okay. Just turned 32. Thank you. Okay. He does not have a ton of mileage, because early in his career, he broke in at 22, played 49 games as a rookie for Toronto, 76, on and on and on. Of course, he was part of their championship team. He was an important part of their championship team. It was a very good team. Do you think that this takes away from them going young? Are you concerned about this taking reps, shots from others, or does the expiring contract make you feel better about it?
Well, that's the thing. They've left themselves so much optionality, and I know this is not what the question is about, but it's like they haven't committed to him, right? Like, he was eligible for extension. I'm not sure what that is looking like what he would be eligible with the Heat or not. Obviously, we know like the Heat are. It seems like they don't even want to extend Tyler at this point, at least just like at that max number that he's eligible for. So in general, it seems like they can clear their books, right? This is not a long-term commitment to Norman Powell. It's a stopgap option, kind of like what we were talking about with them potentially acquiring Beal or potentially acquiring DeRozan. It's a stopgap option, right? Like, it's a guy who is good at what he does, who gives them an offensive scoring punch. And you alluded to it earlier, but he's a better defender than those guys as well. He's not a lockdown defender, but absolutely a better defender than DeRozan and Beal, in my opinion. And a guy who gets to the rim more than them. I have to double check the numbers, but I'm pretty sure, he gets to the rim more than Tyler as well. Gets to the free throw line more than Tyler. 100% a pure scorer, right? DeRozan and Beal are better playmakers than him, but you get like a guy who is easier to play next to Hero, right? Because of the fact that he can hold up on defense a little bit. And it just, they get that offensive scoring punch without having to give up too much. The only thing is,
they didn't give up anything.
Now,
well, exactly, they didn't give up anything. Am I missing something here? Or did they give up anything?
I thought it would have to be like a couple seconds or something with this, or maybe 1 second. But like, now, what happens with Davion and Kasparis? I was already like a little bit.
I think Davion still. Let me throw this at you. I think Davion still starts.
Well, that's the thing. I was going to say, like, do you still start him now and you go back to that small ball that Heat fans love?
No, I don't think necessarily. Well, look, Alex. He may be the best. He may be. I mean, with Tyler, the best pure scorer, one or 1A best pure scorer on the team. But he also was 4th and 6th man of the year voting 2 seasons ago and 3 seasons ago. So why could he not fill that role for you and still play 30 plus minutes? I mean, you look at the year before, he was 4th and 6th man of the year voting. He started only 3 games. He averaged 26 minutes for a pretty good Clippers team. And the year before, he started only 8 games, averaged 26 minutes for a pretty good Clippers team. I don't see any reason why he couldn't play 26 to 30 minutes off the bench as your third guard. Yeah, the guy who's getting sacrificed is the rookie, and I understand that, but the rookie doesn't look ready right now. So that's the thing. I want to see him get reps, obviously, but he doesn't look ready right now.
I need to address some of those things, because he was coming off the bench and was a great bench player, for sure. I get that part about it. But, man, the rosters are so different, man.
I know.
There was Kawhi, Harden, Paul George. Now,
I get it.
Look, I know I get it where PG's at now. But, look, they had a stacked team. He just had a career year at 32. At 31, it was a pretty big story. Like you mentioned, almost made the All-Star team. Was, a guy who was probably getting ready to get paid, to now bring him back off the bench. And again, he could still be very productive off the bench. I just feel like, I don't know if you make this move, if you're going to bring him off the bench. It's absolutely.
But Alex, he started. He's played 10 years. He's played 617 games. The majority of them have been as a reserve. And this is why I think it could trend this way. I get it. He's in a contract year. He's probably not going to want to do that.
I think he's graduated past that, is what I'm saying. Kind of like what we used to say with Hero. except this guy's a lot older and he's done
Right.
it for a lot longer.
But I'm saying for team construction purposes, and on the other side is we'll get to some of the other topics, but from team construction purposes, if you're bringing him off the bench, and let's say you're bringing Jovic off the bench, okay, you actually have the semblance of a bench that can score for the first time in a while. Now we'll see who the other pieces would be. Would it be Hawkes? Would it be Larson? Now I don't think Love was going to play very much this year anyway, so they got to figure out that whole backup big deal. And yeah, Kaspers just doesn't look ready right now. I mean, again, I'm not giving up on him after 2 summer league games. Come on.
I mean, also we haven't seen him get the ball much, but that's a whole other topic.
Right, but maybe you do hand the second unit to him, and you have a veteran in there in Powell to play with at times, and that could be an
actually
option.
kind of makes sense there next to Norman in that second unit, because he's a guy obviously like a pass first guy. I mean, it would require them like giving him the ball to actually facilitate. Right, and not just play like an off-ball two for whatever reason. But again, that's a whole other.
Which is what they've been doing the first 2 summer league.
Yeah,
games,
and it's like whatever. He's not even in the comfort zone of like where the reason why he was a lottery pick in the first place. But whatever, that's a whole other thing. Either way, like I think I was already a little bit concerned about that, because it's like they have this different type of like point guard prospect who's also young, right? And even though he has like an NBA body compared more to some of the other guys in that position in the Heat's range, like it's still a guy who's going to require some time. So I was already kind of skeptical about that, knowing that Spo is usually just going to go with the guy he thinks is better right now, who can help him more right now. What I will say about that is that Kaspers has held up pretty decently on defense. Yes. So I'm going to see, like we got to see how that translates to the NBA level, right? But the defense stuff has been encouraging. The offense stuff, of course, like that's we got to see him with the ball in his hands and facilitating out of pick and roll. But like either way, what you're saying makes sense especially if you're trying to include all 4 of them, right? In the sense that you're still trying to play Davion a good amount, and you're trying to incorporate Kaspers there, right?
But
like
Dallas, I'm also doing that
next to Norman.
I'm also doing that in the context of Wiggins still being here and being the starting 3, and I don't know right now if that's the case. But if you're going to play Powell, Hero, and Davion as your starters, you are really small again, which they've been before. You're really small, and then you're really big, right? And you got Bam and you got Ware, but you're really small there. And so
could also go Powell.
I still think that Wiggins could be moved. You could do that. You could do that as well. You could go Powell here. Yes, you could, but then you're still lacking scoring punch off the bench. So
it's a little awkward with all the people who like to score like one-on-one there.
Somebody's got to come off the bench, and we know it ain't going to be Tyler. All right, on the other side of this, we'll talk about Tyler a little, because I think that's one of the topics that we're going to tee up as we go forward here. But we also want to thank one of our great sponsors. She's always with us, Lynette. You can find her at insurancebylynette.com. She's on our Discord. She's on our playback. Biggest thing she does, though, is she'll help you get the right insurance. So check her out, again, at Aggressive Insurance Agency, insurancebylynette.com. Always smiling, always talking about the Heat. She knows more than we do, trust me. She won a Rozier out of the rotation well before we did. 954-581-8800, insurancebylynette.com. Life insurance, homeowners insurance, renters insurance, and, of course, if you have a bad driving record, she's the person to go to get you your car insurance. So, again, it's insurancebylynette.com, 2 N's and 2 T's, insurancebylynette.com. Okay, there's going to be other questions that come from this. I don't want to hit these in total here. We want to get a podcast up quickly. I'm going to catch a flight. I'll get into more of this with Brady, you, Greg, others as we go forward here. The obvious thing that Heat fans are going to point to now, especially because they have a roster spot. They have a roster spot. They didn't have a roster spot before, and I kept hinting they were trying to get a roster spot. Well, they got a roster spot. So 2 things here, okay? 1, do you think it makes sense now to try to get Dame Lillard? We know that they're over the apron, over the tax. They're over the tax, not the apron. They're over the tax. Well, and first apron, right? Give their situation as we speak, because I think Bobby Marks hit on this beforehand.
Yeah, they were under the luxury tax originally after the Duncan and Simone Fontecchio stuff that occurred, and they have climbed back over the luxury tax line with this move. Now, of course, none of that is set in stone yet. They don't pay that bill until the end of next season. So they're not absolutely committed to being a luxury tax team yet. But just the fact that they went back over it for a guy who is obviously like a short-term help you now type of piece, right, kind of tells you about, hey, the Heat are the Heat. They're going to keep trying to compete. They're not going to bottom out. Even like our version of bottoming out, which would have been like, it's that kind of same team. You're not adding any win now players, whatever. Like they were not satisfied with just having like this sort of gap. They're like, no, we need somebody to help us now. And that's kind of what we expected. I think to a certain extent with when we were talking about acquiring guys like DeRozan or Beal, they just kind of went right back into this and went back over the luxury tax line, still below the first apron, but they will be hard capped at the first apron, right? So that's going to affect certain things. They can't offer the full mid-level to Beal anymore because they kind of dipped into that to make this trade work because they took back so much more money. I think they took back around 6 or 7 mil more than they sent out.
Exception. Yeah.
Right. Obviously, now what remains to be seen, like you mentioned, is what they do with the roster spot. Like they could go after a guy like Dame if he's willing to take the minimum, and that doesn't hurt them too much in the with the apron stuff. They could, I think, what is maybe more realistic considering where the rumors have been is now it makes a Wiggins to Lakers deal more palatable if the Lakers are still interested in doing that, because a lot of the scenarios have required the Heat to take back more players, right? Because a lot of them have included Rui, right? Who makes 18 mil compared to Wiggins next year making, I think, 28 mil, right? So you have to add more contracts to make it work, and you have to get creative. And I think now it just makes, a pathway to a trade there much more palatable, right? If that's what they want to do. And I think it would be really interesting if that's what the Heat did now, because it's kind of like they just traded for a 22 points per game score, and then they're going to be trading another guy who was averaging whatever it was, 18 for them, away for a guy who is considered to be worse than a pick, right? Which is kind of like what the rumor is. So I'm interested to see what they do with Wiggins from here. They're still thinking about a move like that where they would trade him for a pick and a player. They still have the Terry piece, obviously the expiring deal, if they want to make another move with that. They just have a lot of expiring money, and that includes Norm, that includes Fontecchio.
Right.
So it's just like they have a lot of optionality right now. I'm just not sure where they're gonna go with it. But yeah.
Well, could they get Connect back in that deal is what I wonder, or could they get a first round pick that allows them to do something else?
They get Bronny back because he's been out playing Connect.
I know, but you're talking about a young shooter who did show promise early last year, and if you got Rui and Connect, I don't think that's a terrible deal for the direction that you're going. Again, talking about Wiggins being 30 and not really knowing where that is, and he's got an extra year left in his contract. But they have given themselves some optionality there, which, again, was the point here. And I understand, Heat fans wanting them to always have the picks to go after, get the star. But this move here today, and then we got one more part to get to, which we got to hit quick. But this move today was very much a Heat move. To get, we're talking DeRozan, we're talking Beal, we're talking Lillard may still be in the picture, but they get a guy who feels like more of a Heat player. Like Powell's someone they've gone after numerous times before. I think he'll fit perfectly from what I know of him. A lot of people in Toronto who covered him thought he was kind of in a lot of ways the glue to that team up there. He's going to fit fine with the Heat. I don't have it. There's no questions about it. He fits with the type of person that they've been trying to bring in. He's been underrated throughout the course of his career, and he's actually gotten better over the years. Again, if you look at the numbers, this is his highest scoring average he's ever had, and he had it at age 31, and he did it on really high efficiency. So for a team that won, he didn't do it this isn't Rozier, okay, who did it for a bad team. He did it for a team that won, and there were people who were upset that he didn't get into the All-Star game. So you're talking about that kind of player. Now, quickly, okay, because we got to do whole episodes on this. There's a player for the Heat who did get into the All-Star game who's looking for a big extension. Even the money that Powell, and he's much younger than Norm Powell. He's 7 years younger, right? So obviously there's more upside potential with Tyler Hero than there is for Norm Powell going down the road. But they do play the same position, basically. And the extension that Norm was looking for is a lot cheaper than the extension that Tyler is eligible for now, or especially after this season. Do you think this gives the Heat some leverage with Tyler?
Ooh, some leverage. Yeah, I mean, for sure, because I think there is like a guy that they can just go to if that is something that they really wanted to pursue, right? Like they can give Norm Powell, because that is what happened this year. And like you said, he did it on great efficiency, but he got high usage, he got a lot of shot attempts, and to be fair, it was on a good team, with Harden, a guy who was, elite at playmaking and a great scorer. This is not exactly the same situation, right? And like no shade to Tyler. Like it's gonna look different, right? Like I think whether they look to trade Tyler or not, Norm is not going to be like this amazing, like he's gonna average 27 for you, like whatever, right? Like he is a stopgap option who is very good, and they got him for essentially next to nothing compared to what you thought his value would be. So yeah, absolutely gives them optionality with Tyler because they didn't have to risk much to get this guy in the first place. And now if that is something they wanted to pursue, it just makes it so much more realistic because you have a guy in place who can do some of those things, literally plays the same position as him. So I still would be skeptical that they move on from Tyler, like given the situation where like it seems like he's willing to play ball with them based on what he was saying. The fact that the extension stuff doesn't begin until October, like there's no immediate tension with that right now. The fact that he seemed like he's willing to like push it off till the end of next season, just based on his comments, right? So that makes me think that won't happen in the short term. But if an offer came up, if a scenario came up, which might be hard to find, where a team is just like, we're going to send you this great offer for Tyler, it's absolutely more palatable now. And I just think that he'd have so much optionality in terms of what they can do with their roster. And also, let's get back to the stuff that we've been talking about, what direction they're going to take. Because this keeps you in the like, hey, we're trying to compete now. We're going to try to win like 44 games this year, 45 games this year, and do something in the playoffs. And I know a lot of fans are not going to like that, right? A lot of fans were wanting them to go to the other direction. So again, like I'm not 100% sure what they're doing, but they picked up a pretty good stopgap option for next to nothing. Like it doesn't certify a direction either way, but it does tell you about what they're thinking for this season.
Yeah, and like I said, there's very limited risk with it. That to me is the biggest thing, and it doesn't shut down any of the directions that they want to go after this. But I do think there's going to be additional moves here. It's clear that there are. Another thing they could do if they wanted to, they could waive and stretch Fontecchio, and that would get them. That might take care of some of the tax problem here too. But again, there's a lot of options to look at. This comes in from Brian Fonseca, and I'll close with this. We'll have more episodes over the course of the day after I get back to Florida. Only guards in NBA history with a career 60% true shooting percentage at better at 6'3" or shorter: Steph Curry, John Stockton, Steve Nash, and Norman Powell. So, I mean, you're talking about a guy who just can flat out shoot. Like that's and we did entire
and get to the basket.
This was going to be the worst and get to that. And one of the worst shooting teams of Heat history. This was looking like. It just got a little bit better in that regard. So we'll have more on the trades as we go forward. If something else breaks while I'm in the air, which probably is what's going to occur, we'll do something else on that as soon as we land. Make sure you subscribe to Off the Floor. Our guys are going on a stage show right now. Actually, you won't hear this until they're done with it, but you never know when we'll have another one. So make sure you're signed up. Have a good one, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. After all, someone needs to listen to my dad.